Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name's John Bonning. I'm Commercial Director here at the Building Centre. This is the first of our Water Wednesdays talks. We've got a series of talks happening as part of the exhibition that hopefully you've seen upstairs. If you haven't had a chance to look around it, please do before you leave today. For those of you who are not familiar with the Building Centre, we are an independent forum for the construction industry. We're a non-for-profit organisation that sits below the Built Environment Trust, a registered charity, putting on a wide range of talks, exhibitions and events around various subjects within the built environment. As always, these talks and programmes could not take place without the kind support of our partners, which are shown on the screen here today. We've got a lot to get through today. We've got some fantastic presentations, a lot of speakers, so I'm going to be pretty strict on timekeeping, so you're not going to hear too much from me. You'll all be pleased to hear. Quick bit of housekeeping. There's no fire drills planned for today, so should you hear a continuous ringing, please leave the way you came out, and the Building Centre team will direct you out the building. And likewise, for the benefit of all the speakers today, can you just check that your phones are on silent before we start? In terms of the schedule today, I'm delighted to say that we've got Nikki Russell from WaterWise that will be giving us a quick overview about water efficiency to start with. And then we're going to be splitting the sessions. So we're going to have two sessions running in parallel. One session will be taking place in this room, and the next one next door. So there's a bit of audience participation. We want you to get up and move about and go from one session to another. So we have Bertie Wennick from Public First giving the case for water smart housing and their research, together with Dan Simmons, MD of Quensus, talking about LeakNet and smart technology leak detection. And then we'll have Jude from Ofwat giving a presentation on the Water Efficiency Fund, and Pablo and Ben from University of Surrey talking about behavioural patterns in Water Insights. There'll be a short comfort break. We're going to try and stick to time at about 3:30. There'll be coffees and tea served outside, a little chance to go back upstairs and look around the exhibition if you've got time. And then we're going to come back for a panel discussion, and there'll be a Q&A session on the back of that. So keep your questions until the end, and the panel will be delighted to answer them. Without much further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Nikki. Wait for it, Nikki. Nikki is the Chief Executive of WaterWise. It's the UK's leading independent organisation championing water efficiency. Nikki brings more than 20 years of experience across government, regulation and the water sector, spanning influential roles in DEFRA and Ofwat, and ultimately co-funding WaterWise in 2005. So if you could, just welcome Nikki to the stage. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Can you all hear me okay through this mic? Yeah, getting some nods. It's brilliant to be here with you today. I'm really thrilled to see all these faces and lots of new faces, because what we mustn't do in the water sector is keep talking to ourselves. But I'd like you to imagine another Wednesday. Imagine yourselves on a Wednesday morning, you've just got into work, you're imagining some great conversations with new clients, some fabulous, exciting new designs, some brilliant conversations with your lovely, engaging colleagues. And then you go to the loo and the water's off. And you get a call from your head of operations and the water's off right across all your sites and buildings. So you're going to have to close everything, send everybody home. And then you find out that the water's off right across the region. So actually, none of your staff can concentrate at home either, because they're trying to work out how they're going to flush the loo, wash their hands, wash, bathe and cook. So now you have to cancel everything. And this is now a day without water. And can you imagine on a day without water, the focus of your leadership would totally change. because nothing happens without water. Nothing happens without water. It's quite a bold statement. Some of you thinking, we'll catch her out here. Are you trying to think of something that can happen without water? Well, let's try this. Put your hand up if you sent an email today. Keep your hand up if you checked your own company's website this week. Keep your hand up if you use AI in your business. And can you imagine going a whole day without checking your phone? Well, you've all heard about data centres. Data centres, as you know, store, process and distribute all of our data. And data centres use a lot of water for cooling. And usually it's purified drinking water in the UK. Nobody knows exactly how much water they use. Thames Water have said 25 litres a second. Another study said a medium-sized data centre uses the same amount of water as 3 average-sized hospitals. And let me just amplify the point that nothing happens without water. There's absolutely no way a school or a hospital, a factory, a transport system can function without water. Here's one more example. Hands up if you breathe today. Human life cannot exist without water. Most of your body is water. After 3 days without water, almost all of us would die. So water's of infinite value. I hope I'm starting to land this point with you. But let me go one further. I want to get you in touch with your feelings for water. You love water, and I want to show you how much. Touch your heart if you've ever been on holiday or a day trip to a beach, river, or lake. Touch your heart if you've ever had a shower to wake up, warm up, or cool down. Touch your heart if you've ever had a refreshing drink of water on a really hot day. Touch your heart if you've ever had a relaxing bath. And touch your heart if you've ever splashed in puddles with or without a toddler. See how many times water touched your heart in that exercise. And just so you know, 3/4 of your heart is water. So not only is water essential to life, but it also brings us joy. Water is special. But we are running out. I'm sorry to tell you, we're running out of water right across the UK. We've had a really wet autumn and winter, haven't we? The gardens are looking really healthy and happy. But remember the summer and spring. We had the hottest and driest summer and spring right across the UK. Last spring was the driest spring in 100 years in England. The second driest in 100 years in parts of Scotland. Wales had the 4th driest spring ever. And Northern Ireland also had an exceptionally dry summer. Now, some of those are places that you would think would be very rain-rich. But don't forget, the first hosepipe ban and drought last year was in Yorkshire, which is a beautiful county. People wouldn't necessarily think of it as water scarce. Just going to zip through a few slides here to show you some examples of what it was like last spring and summer. That's a reservoir in England last spring. Reservoir in Wales last spring. Scotland. I have one in Scotland as well. I've lost that one. And that's a slide from the Met Office showing how we're still breaking all the records for heat. There were 4 heat waves last summer. That's unprecedented. There's a Scottish one. So just using England as a case study for a minute, and that's the National Framework for Water Resources, which the Environment Agency released last spring. Did you know that most of England is officially categorised as seriously water stressed? And this report showed that by 2055 we will have a 5 billion litre daily gap in England between the water we have and the water we need. And that's almost a third of the daily water we use now. That is a critical gap. 6 billion litres a day if you include water for data, food and energy, all of which we are most definitely going to need during that time period. The National Infrastructure Commission a few years ago said that there was a 1 in 4 chance in the next 20 years of rota cuts, water being cut off for homes and businesses at a massive economic cost. And this is an England case study, but in fact all 4 countries of the UK are predicting deficits in coming years if we don't do something about it. Why are we running out? It is counterintuitive because we've all learnt about the water cycle, and it's true, we're drinking the same water the dinosaurs drank. So why are we running out? It's all to do with people. You, me, us. Problem 1, there were more of us than ever before. Since I was born 54 years ago, there are an extra 12 million people in the UK. 12 million, and they all need water to live. Problem 2, we're all using more water than we used to. If anyone here was born 6 decades ago, I'm not going to ask you to put your hand up, then everyone here, every day, is using almost double the amount of water people used when you were born. Problem 3, we've caused a climate emergency. So there's less water available when we need it. This is a serious business risk. Drought is on the verge of becoming the next pandemic. This was The Guardian a couple of years ago. And I ask you this: could you operate your business without water? No, you couldn't. This slide is a few examples of restrictions already, of homes that weren't able to be built, businesses that weren't able to expand, schools closing due to lack of water. But there is some good news. My glass is always half full, so I'm going to come on to the optimist bit now. I wanted some smiley faces to cheer you up after all that doom and gloom. This is from Anglian Water's website. Anglian Water, I know, are one of the partners for this event. So let's start with the good news. Water efficiency will save businesses money. It will cut your water bills. Water bills are rising. Most businesses are using more water than they need to. Thames Water's got a fantastic programme, Smarter Business Visits. I'm sure Andrew will share some of the data later. And these are some of the savings. During COVID, Thames Water identified continuous flow in a huge number of its business properties. This was COVID. Nobody was at work. The buildings were empty, but the water was still flowing through leaks. The second bit of good news is, do you have a carbon target? I hope everyone's saying yes to this inside themselves. Water efficiency will help you with this. It's vital to net zero. Cold water efficiency means there's less carbon involved in pumping and treating the water and the wastewater being taken away. Hot water efficiency, even better. It saves you on your personal carbon and energy use. And the best news of all is that, lucky us, we have a dedicated organisation working on water efficiency. Tamara and I work for WaterWise. We're very proud to be 20 years old. We only work on water efficiency. That is all that we do. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do and hopefully give you some hope and some of the things that you can do. We're only small, there's 15 of us, so we work in partnership. That's why our purpose is to lead and inspire change so that water's never wasted. As you would hope, as the dedicated water efficiency organisation, we have a plan. This is our strategy. 100 organisations in the water sector, including lots of the names in the room today, signed up to it. If this were delivered, it would save at least 1 billion litres a day, that 5 billion litre daily gap. So you can see that it starts to feel manageable. I mentioned that we're out and about always, everywhere, talking about water efficiency. So we've got all these networks of individuals, but also our stakeholders are really key. My staff insisted that I put this on because the Minister rang me on day 2 in post and said, what do we need to do about water efficiency? Well, if we didn't have the reputation for expertise, she wouldn't have rung and asked that, and it was a really great opportunity to give her some ideas. A couple of programmes I wanted to call out here: water literacy and the 50-litre home pilot. So water literacy is a super exciting programme funded by Ofwat's Innovation Fund, modelled on carbon literacy. It's a one-day online course. We've been working with Northumbrian Water and Groundwork, and we've accredited 2,000 learners. So we're very excited about that, and we're hoping to be able to trial a programme for water literate organisations, accreditation, drawing on that champions-led change. The 50-litre homes programme, there's been a fantastic pilot for this in Los Angeles, and 50-litre homes is supported by some huge organisations like Procter & Gamble, IKEA, Electrolux. And over here, the water companies are very involved. In LA, they reduced water use from 178 litres per day to 87. So that is a really great example of what can be done. A very high start, much higher than our average here, and lower than our average at the end. And what we want to do in the UK, and we'll be bidding into the fund that Jude's going to talk about in a bit, is to develop that in the UK and make sure that it's scalable and transferable. These are our networks. These are all water company networks. There were lots of them. It's famously stakeholder rich, the water sector. But in all of these groups, we are there talking about water efficiency, flying the flag. These are our corporate members. Really, really important to enable us to do our work as a not-for-profit. We also have individual members. And this is just a snapshot a couple of years ago of some of the media we did. We're very keen to do the national broadcast media because that gets our message out to loads of people. Also, local radio is very powerful, supporting water company messaging. And that right in the middle there, you probably can't see, that's a career highlight of mine when John Humphreys asked me live on the Today programme whether he should wee on his garden to save water. We have campaigns right through the year. You can have a look at them on our website. There are also sponsorship opportunities to get your name out there attached to water efficiency for all our campaigns and events. I wanted to mention the Waterwise checkmark. This is an accreditation for buildings to show that you care about water efficiency, to show your customers, your clients, that you're putting your money where your mouth is. And we've accredited our first pub, a community pub in Norfolk. We've accredited lots of big government buildings, big water company buildings. And I wanted to highlight Mosul there because they are a tenant of their building, so you can still get the check mark even if you don't own the building. I'm going to zip through now. I'm almost at the end because I know we've got loads of exciting things coming up. I wanted also to mention our affiliate packages and our Waterwise training. Do speak to Tamara or me at the end, or connect with us on LinkedIn or by email, because we're really keen to help you drive water efficiency and give you some advice. This is my final slide. What are you going to do about it? You've heard that we're running out and that nothing happens without water. So what are you going to do when you go home from today? Better understand your water use at home and at work. That would be a great start. At work, map that water use against the risks that you know are around. Make a plan for reducing your water use. Make sure you include water in your resilience and contingency planning. You would be astonished how many organisations do not. Talk to us about what else you might need us to talk to government and others about to make your sector take notice. I've got at the bottom there 2 quotes. One is from the Minister, where she says water efficiency is essential to growth and it is a priority for this government. And the second one is from our colleague Rachel, who points out that the most affordable water is the water we don't use. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Much appreciated. I think we'd all agree that's pretty much a very thought-provoking presentation there. We all need to do more. We need to do more as a society in terms of thinking about our water consumption and how we use our water and our habits. So now we're going to split the sessions. So those of you that would like to listen to Quintus do a presentation about smart technologies and AI, the leak net detector and flow reporter, please can you go next door. There's a door at the back there of the room that you can transition through to. And Bertie from Public First will speak in this room, giving an oversight on their research project about the economic enabling water smart communities. So can I ask you to move about, depending on what you'd like to hear? As I said, if you just go through to that room there, you'll find Dan in there already to present to you. And Bertie, if you could join us here, thank you. These will be a quick 30-minute presentations, and then we'll do another switch again. So.
Should you just kick off? Yeah, okay. Great, so as John said, I'm going to talk today about a piece of research that we Public First were commissioned to do by Enabling Water Smart Communities. And Enabling Water Smart Communities are an Ofwat funded innovation project looking at how to promote and implement water efficient housing at the system level. They commissioned us as a research agency to look at both the economic case for water smart communities and water smart housing, and also to look at what the public think about reuse, water reuse and water efficiency in housing. So I'll talk through both of those research strands today, and happy to answer any questions after as well. So the first strand of this research we were commissioned to do was an economic modelling project. The aim was to understand what the economic benefit is of housing that's built to a higher water efficiency standard. And we calculated this by going through a few steps. So obviously, as we've heard already, there are areas of water scarcity in the UK, and we measured those by local authority. We then estimated the number of homes that would be essentially undeliverable in each local authority. And the way that we did this was by combining the WRMPs from 2024 with the new government targets from 2024 in terms of housing. So in other words, the water company resource plans were made before Labour came in and essentially increased the number of housing that they expected to be built across the country. And the third step was estimating the number of homes that you could essentially reclaim if they were built to a water efficiency standard of 30% higher. And finally, knock-on effect of calculating the economic benefit of those additional homes that are allowed to be built through a variety of methods. Now, it's just worth saying that in reality, water companies have a statutory requirement to deliver housing, whereas they don't have a statutory requirement to deliver water to new businesses, and so the cost is in reality would be borne by non-household development being blocked. So, as I said, the first step was to look at how many more houses the government were planning to build across the country, equating to 325,000 over the course of Parliament. And that's, as I said, in addition to existing projections made before the election under the previous government. And as a result, the additional housing places a further strain on water resources based on what's planned for in WRMPs and water management plans. These are broken down by water resource zones. And in WRMPs, there are several water resource zones that are essentially at their limit of supply. In other words, they don't have any headroom, and therefore, in addition, in forecast demand exceeds the available supply in the plans. So our models essentially combined the water resource and housing delivery forecasts, as I said, to estimate the housing delivery that's under threat. We merged the data sets from MHCLG with WRMPs in our models and calculated the economic cost and benefit in three ways. So first is a core economic appraisal of land value uplift, which is a proxy for the additional activity of simply building these houses. The original lost land value uplift is the cost of economic activity that will not occur as a result of not building the houses. The second is lost construction activity. So construction spending stimulates economic activity, and that's direct output. And then the third is lost productivity benefits from agglomeration. So these agglomeration benefits are particularly high in areas, the southeast and Oxford and Cambridge, where there are particularly high productivity sectors, and where increasing density of housing and population can increase the local economic output. So our economic impact estimations focused on several areas of water scarcity, which are outlined here, and they were chosen based on the presence of water resource zones with little to no surplus. And what did we find? So over the course of Parliament, the economic cost is significant. We found an 11 billion cost over the course of this Parliament. That's 74% comes from construction spending, which is the largest economic cost over 5 years, partly driven by inflation. Then lost land value uplift, significantly lower in some areas because land values vary quite significantly across the country. And then finally, agglomeration impacts makes up the rest of the economic cost. In terms of the precise numbers of housing that exceeds the available headroom, total houses lost under the new formula equates to 28,000. So we calculated this originally on the basis of Labour's original target. Since then it's changed, and so we've updated the figures, and that's based on projections of 1.3 million homes by the OBR. And in the southeast, that's greatest, in the east, and then London and the East Midlands, finally. So subsequently, the benefit of building water smart housing to a standard of 30% higher water efficiency, assuming a baseline of 110 litres per person per day, recoups about 77% of that total economic cost, and nearly 22,000 houses of the 28,000 are lost. So in other words, you can make up for this deficit by implementing water smart developments and water smart communities, and that recoups the otherwise lost economic gains from water scarcity. So there's a strong political case for building these water smart homes. Water smart development is a quick win. In other words, it can unlock vast majority of the lost homes and represents an easy way to kind of overcome that barrier. There is an economic cost that you can recoup, but importantly, the productivity gains and population growth in high productivity areas in the east and southeast of England will importantly be able to kind of increase the density of their population, which are sites of increasing importance when we think about the Oxcam arc and development in that area of the country. I'm just conscious I need to keep track of time, so I will move on to the opinion research element of this project. And in other words, we wanted to understand not just the economic benefits, but whether or not the public would accept water smart technology, water reuse, to the degree to which they would accept it, and also what would change their mind if in some areas with language, but also how they perceive different types of reuse and for what use, and depending on the usage of that water and where that recycled water has come from. So what we did was a 4,000 person nationally representative poll and a few experiments. So a max diff experiment, which was designed to test respondents' priorities for new housing developments. 2 experiments designed to test how water recycling type and location affects people's attitudes, and some positive and negative message testing. And the result of this is to kind of come up with a series of recommendations for how we can talk about reuse, where people are more sceptical and where people are more open to reuse precisely. So water issues, you can ask in a variety of ways. You can ask what people care about and wait for them to talk about water. If you do that, they are lower on the agenda, but if you ask them directly, people see water issues as very important. So particularly flooding and water shortages, those who say they live in areas that experience flooding more frequently are more concerned, obviously, than those who live in less frequently flooded areas. But people do agree that these issues are important. So when we ask people about whether or not they've already taken steps to reduce their water consumption, the majority claim they have. But this isn't to do with environmental reasons primarily, it's primarily to do with costs. So 70% nearly have taken at least some steps to reduce day-to-day consumption. Of those who said that they have, this was primarily to save on household bills rather than help the environment. But both the reduction and the reasons for the reduction are fairly consistent across income groups. And similarly, when we look at costs, they're the top concern, with people kind of largely unaware of this knock-on impact of water scarcity on restricting development and economic impact. So the increases to water costs is the most frequently cited issue, in other words, bills. And for older people, hosepipe bans, crop failures and polluted rivers were more important. But over 85% of respondents didn't consider water shortages to have any impact on housing development. So what do we find from our experiments? Well, again, this issue of cost and bills, when we ask about water recycling in general, people think it's done to bring costs down, to bring bills down. So 50% of the public think the UK already recycles water, but only 60% are certain that we do. And as I said, it's anticipated to be a cost-saving measure rather than anything else. When we asked about the use, people are most willing to use recycled water for toilet flushing or outdoor uses. And that was clear across the board, across demographics, across income groups. And that goes all the way down to age group and region. Very few said that they wouldn't be willing to use any form of recycled water. And only a third of the UK think that the concept is disgusting. So I think a lot of people have talked before about this element of a yuck factor. But those who care about the environment are slightly more likely to want to use it. So again, as I said, we did two experiments. One was type of water, and the other was where it would come from. So this first experiment looked at where the recycled water has come from. And so clearly across the board, rainwater was highly supported, very positive for multiple uses. Toilet water, on the other hand, was the other end of the scale. So relative to a baseline of reused water from a washing machine, even on cost-saving, respondents felt that toilet water would be less likely to save money, just likely indicating that the level of aversion to this concept of reusing toilet water at all for anything. But again, rainwater was on the opposite end of the spectrum. And similarly, people were willing to use it for most things: laundry, flushing the toilet, dishwashing. But proposals to use recycled water for drinking were the most controversial again. So what we saw was across the board an attitude that supported rainwater reuse and reuse for toilet flushing and reuse for irrigation and outdoor usage. But the closer it comes to the washing and simply the body, the less likely people are to want to use that. And these effects compound, as the table shows. So rain to toilet, most trusted, and toilet to tap is the least trusted of all forms of water reuse and of all forms of location. Time I've got left on. Am I doing all right? Okay. So message testing, similarly, we wanted to see what people would respond and how differently they would respond depending on how we messaged it. But regardless, a majority are willing to use different types of water recycling at the home. Rainwater was the most popular type of water recycling we tested and performed better than grey water. But interestingly, whether water was being recycled across a household or across their wider estate and community didn't really have an impact. So the house level or the wider water smart community level wasn't a huge indicator of how people would respond. Strongest messages in support revolved around cost, generally speaking, not consistently. So rainwater, already highly supported option, sustainability, common sense messaging also performed well. But for grey water, cost-based messaging cut through by a substantial degree, which added to 11% to the next best level of support, which is a significant difference. And again, on site level, it didn't make much difference with all the messaging roughly level. On the other side, the negative side, the most successful negative messages we tested, in other words, messages people would be most likely to find convincing against water reuse, were those stating health risks of water recycling, with an average of 75% finding these statements convincing. So there's some education that needs to be done there around this and around the negatives, but it shows it's an area of scepticism from the public and an area where they're vulnerable to concerns. And yeah, so there are reasons to be concerned we found about the safety angle. When we ask about water recycling in general, perceptions that it would be safe outweighed those that it would have risks. However, once we explain these concepts in the process of doing this poll, re-asking these questions and going through definitions, and after people had had 15 to 20 minutes to think about it, health risks were more severe in terms of what the public perceived to be a drawback. And the same was true of grey water as well. So the conclusions from this are essentially cost and cost saving were seen to be a critical part of successful water recycling. People recognise the environmental advantages, but they expect and kind of want those cost saving benefits in terms of their bills. And similarly, the cost-based messaging was most impactful on how much people supported them. So the other conclusion that toilets to tap messaging doesn't help. Respondents are kind of very clear on that. They don't want that form of reuse in their home, but they do see, on the other hand, rainwater recycling very desirable, and emphasising other water sources, particularly rainwater, and uses, particularly toilet flushing, outdoor uses, does meaningfully change the trust that people have in the approach. There are some risks around and concerns around safety and health. People aren't instinctively repulsed, but the concept has to be explained in detail. Otherwise, some views will shift to the negative if people make those arguments to them. Site level versus household level didn't really make a difference. Ultimately, the concern is around where the water comes from, what it's for, but it matters less to people whether the source is directly at the household or at the site level. And similarly, treatment approaches had little impact, and they weren't kind of widely understood. So similarly, the link between water scarcity and unlocking housing, unlocking more development is an important thing, which people don't quite get at the moment, but do look upon favourably when we look in our other polling about the support people have for more development and more economic growth. So that is, I think, all I have.
You've still got time if there's a...
We have a few more bits to run through, but I think that's, yes, good.
Okay, well, you finished earlier. I don't know if anyone's got any questions they would like to put to Bertie, if he's happy to answer them.
Sure.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm going to try and... You're loud enough anyway.
Andrew Tucker from Thames Water. The site versus household is really interesting.
Yeah.
Is the site, what's the definition of site? Is that just like an estate?
Like an estate, yes, exactly. So we found previous research suggested that people had different attitudes depending on whether the reused water was at the household level or across the development. But we didn't find that come out as a factor at all in our research, which was quite interesting. And we also did a, which I'll touch on, a series of on-the-ground studies where we went to interview people within developments that used reuse, and often they actually, speaking to them individually, preferred the idea of a site-level reuse that had a kind of collectively maintained system than a single household level. Yeah.
Two questions. Yeah. So first one is on your first bit about economics.
Yeah.
Does it make any difference what sort of political basis you're making that argument on? I mean, if it was I suppose you're considering a market economy. If it was, say, a socialist setup, would that mean it was different, or does that still apply in that circumstance anyway? And the second question is, we already drink toilet water around the world. So, I mean, in this country, I guess we put the toilet water in the river, and then we take it out, and then we drink it. So did your people that were in the survey understand that?
So to pick up on the second question, the idea of water reuse was grey water, and these concepts were explained throughout the survey. Initially, we wanted to see what people knew already and what their gut reaction would be to this technology, and they didn't know, is the answer. They didn't know, in truth, the degree to which we treat water and reuse it already. On the first question, we just looked at the water resource zones and government targets, so very specific to this Parliament and this government's commitments.
Did you get a chance to ask people, oh, would we really get into this if we had an app we could play around with where all the data came in and we could look? Did you get a chance to talk to them about how that might change the behaviour?
When we spoke to a few residents of these developments, often people said that they would like to know more. I mean, one thing that we found quite interesting was everybody assumed that they were using the minimum amount of water that they could, but that maybe if they were helped, they could use a little less. So it was something that they felt they couldn't have necessarily that much agency over themselves. A few people had been engaged by Anglian Water in the area to give them kind of water-saving technologies in their home, and everyone who had engaged with them was positive. So there was a willingness from the public to really have kind of more tools, I suppose, to help them do this. So I think that's fair.
Just one quick follow-up. If you spoke to, do they already have a meter or were expecting a smart meter?
It was mixed.
Any other questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
And in terms of this research, is it publicly available?
Yes, it is a full report, so it's publicly available on EWSC's website. And I don't know if you can share a link after.
Yeah, no, we will probably have a number of people that ask us to share various things, so if you want to check that. Gentleman at the back.
Hello, Stuart, Affinity Water. Did you have any difficulty in engaging the community research, or were people willing?
Quite willing. I mean, I think we are an independent research agency, so it might be different if you're coming as a kind of different organisation. But yeah, people were very willing to talk about this issue, and yeah, we also in our polling, online polling, we recruit through panels where people are kind of remunerated for doing a 15-20 minute survey, so that's not an issue for us either.
Okay, well, Bertie, thanks very much. I mean, it's a really... I think you all agree that's a very much an insightful and a detailed piece of research from Public First, so thank you for sharing that. Now, we're actually running ahead of schedule because although Bertie sent through whatever, I think 30 odd slides for a 20-minute session, I never thought we'd get through them. So, just to let you know what's going on next. There's going to be 2 more sessions, so in here, please stay if you want to hear from Jude from Ofwat around the Water Efficiency Fund. And then next door, we have Pablo and Ben from the University of Surrey talking about behavioural insights in terms of water usage. So what I'm going to suggest is you turn to your neighbour, have a chat for 5 minutes. I'm going to see how they're doing next door, and then we will turn around. After the next presentations, which are scheduled for half an hour, there will be a comfort break and there will be some teas and coffees outside for you to enjoy. So talk amongst yourselves. Thank you.
Ofwat, and I'm also the policy lead on the Water Efficiency Lab. Nikki and Bertie have covered a lot of the context already, but let's go through it from my point of view as the water regulator. Nikki's mentioned the 5 billion litre a day shortfall already that we will be facing in 2055 if we don't change anything. And the other 1 billion that would come from new and future technology and energy and data and other economic needs. So what happens if we don't do anything? What happens if we keep the system as it is now? One, infrastructures become more expensive. We need larger emergency infrastructure to deal with the lack of water. We need expensive retrofitting to deal with the emergency once we do start running out of water. That means we decrease the resilience of our system. We have more and more outages. We have more and more hosepipe bans. No one wants that. People heavily dislike when these happen, and also they have a real impact on our economic opportunities and on our quality of life. And finally, we've got higher bills because the water infrastructure is under more pressure, and because there is an offer-demand mechanism that drives the prices up. And we've got an environmental degradation. There is a lower flow in rivers because we have to pump more water out of them. It affects their pollution level. Less water, equal amount of pollution means much higher concentration of pollution in the water. That affects the local wildlife. We've also got the wetlands and forests that start drying out, which is something that we see sometimes on the continent. Hasn't yet happened. Forest dying of thirst haven't yet happened in Britain, but it is a real thing, and it is quite scary to look at over like satellite map. And this really destroys habitat and impacts not only the wildlife that we love and what we want to see from a sort of wellness perspective, but also the services that we get out of that environment. This is a beautiful graph from my colleagues in the Rapid team talking about all the infrastructure solutions to this issue. So these are reservoirs that are being planned. They are water transfers from regions that are water rich into regions that are water poor. These are desalination plants. All of this is what has been proposed by water companies and looks like could be implemented in the future years. These are great, but large infrastructure is pricey. If any of you, I assume a bunch of you work in the construction side of things, you know how much it costs to build that kind of infrastructure. We do need those reservoirs, we do need those transfers, but they are pricey, they take a long time to be built. It's just a long lead time when you're building a massive project like this one. And it doesn't work everywhere. It just isn't appropriate in every region. On the side of that slide, you can see a little graph. It's from the Environment Agency. It dates from December 2024. And it shows you the distribution of the solutions to respond to this 5 billion gap in water. It's in not in billion, which is why you've got much bigger numbers. You can see in orange and red, these are the amount of water that will come to fill that gap from the infrastructure you saw on the map of England and Wales just before. That's only about a third of what we need. In teal, or bluish, light blue, you can see leakage reduction. This is something that a lot of people think of when they're like, oh, why would we have to do water efficiency when so much water is lost in leakage and distribution? This is how much we're hoping to save from moving towards less leakage in the distribution of the water. And then in dark blue, you've got the customer options, which is water efficiency. This represents about half of the amount of water that needs to be saved to reach that 5 billion, to bridge that 5 billion gap. On the back of this knowledge, Ofwat decided to work on water efficiency. We held a couple of consultations. We talked to experts at the start of 2025. And based on that, we announced a specific pot of money for water efficiency. This is the Water Efficiency Fund. It is £100 million over 5 years to basically have a real step change in water efficiency and enable all the changes that we want to see. This is not the only money being spent on water efficiency. Water companies are also getting money for their own project that they'd already planned for as through the normal planning system for water companies. But this is an extra amount of money specifically for this issue. The fund is split into two parts. On one hand, you've got the water efficiency campaign, which is similar to like your big national health campaigns like Stop Smoking, but around changing the narrative around water and bringing people on this journey. If you were here during Betsy's section or during Nikki's keynote, they were both speaking about the fact that people are not really aware of the water they use, how much they need, what value it has. So that's what the campaign is about. It's about 3/4 of the amount. It's £75 million. And then you've got the Water Efficiency Lab. The lab is a fund to help innovation around water efficiency. I'm just going to talk briefly about the campaign, and then I'll talk about my project, which is the well. So the campaign is such a big opportunity to really change people's mind. Nikki has been working on this for 20 years, and I know that she knows that it takes so much time to change people's mind, and this is really a big investment into changing that and into moving our relationship with water towards mindful use. It's happening through Ofwat in collaboration with 23Red, which is a media company, the water companies, DEFRA, the Environment Agency, the Welsh Government, and Natural Resources Wales. And this should be launching in spring. I think the date should be in May, but I can't tell you with certainty. What is the Water Efficiency Lab? What is the lab part of this funding? The lab is a challenge-led competition. It's an innovation project to drive water demand reduction and fund the development and scaling and delivery of innovative solutions for water efficiency. This year, so we've launched the well halfway through last year. The first year challenge opened in November on a topic which is actionable insight. It's all about gathering that data, gathering that insight, giving people the opportunities to understand what their water usage is like, and taking that data into behavior change, into knowing what to do about your water usage. It's for England and Wales, and it should cover household and non-household, so both the water usage at home, you're showering and gardening and washing up, and the water use in public building, in companies. I think you had a number around how much you can save, hospitals and schools can save through water efficiency, so including these. Why did we choose actionable insights? We wanted something that would be strategic as the first year theme, and that would unlock the future opportunities. What we saw is that there is a real lack of meaningful incentives. People not only do not know how much water they use, they also don't know why they should save any. There is also a lack of data. People and companies in the sector just don't have the data to make these changes. And that really prevents people from taking action. What we're hoping to do with this challenge is give people more tools to start acting on their water use. It's also about helping unlocking the opportunities that come from the smart metering. So some of you may have a smart meter. I think at the end of the last regulatory period, so at the end of 2024, it was about 12% of British households had a smart meter. We're hoping to take this to 50% by 2030. So that's going to be a lot more people that have access to some data and that need a way to use that data, interact with it, and make decisions based on that data. So we wanted to act on data and insight because there's all that data that is going to come in. How do we use it? How do we amplify that new opportunity? It's also about giving opportunities to the people that won't have those smart meters in the next 5 years. So what happens if you live in an area that can't be connected for connectivity reasons or just because you live in a flat in London and you don't have a separate metering to your neighbors? So we want also to see solutions around mini meters and flow sensors and what can happen at the level of your own flat so that you can understand your own usage. I can't understand my own usage at the moment. I live with three flatmates in a big apartment complex, no smart meter, nothing like that. So we also want that type of insight. And finally, we're hoping to get some digital tools, some analysis, some incentive that is around how we, once you have that data, what processes can help get people into a position where they understand it and act on it. If you're interested in applying, individual entries can request between 150,000 and 1.5 million pound. There is a little exception if you've got a digital-led project and that you think you can develop it within the first year of receiving funding, in which case we can go as low as 100,000 pound. The application period is open until the 10th of March. Once that closes, each project is checked for eligibility, but also through an assessment process that checks each project against assessment criteria. You can see here the 4 main ones and how the questions are split inside those 4 assessment criteria. We really wanted to have impact be one of the big ones because we don't want to talk the talk. We want to walk the walk. We want solutions that will deliver proper change on the ground. And the other aspects is innovation, how new it is, how different it is. Does that already exist? Are we just giving customer money for something that is already out there? Do you have the capacity to deliver this project? Will it actually happen within the time frame that you said? And finally, what's the plan after you've developed this new solution? How are you going to take it to market? How are you going to scale it up? How are people going to actually get it in their hands and get excited about it? Projects get scored or top scoring projects go to a jury. The jury will decide on the portfolio and the winners will get funded. I'm not going to go into more detail around the funding and the application. You can come to me or to Alex afterwards if you're interested in applying. We can talk more about the details. The main thing is that unlike a lot of the projects that have been funded through Ofwat, this is a funding that is available to all UK innovators and their UK or international supporters and partners. You don't need to be a water company or to partner with a water company to apply for this. If you've got a project and it's linked to building development but has a strong insight component and strong water component, you can still apply for the well. We're expecting to see obviously water companies apply, but we'll also see behavior science firms. We'll see some tech companies, including software development and hardware manufacturers, consultancy, academics, nonprofits like WaterWise. Importantly, if you want to engage with this, but you're not sure you've got what it takes to be a lead entrant, we do have a networking forum or partnership forum, which allows you to say, I've got these capacities, I'm interested in water efficiency from this angle. I'm not able to lead on a project because I might not have the capacity for it, but I'd like to partner with existing people that have existing ideas that are looking to build that capacity. So that's a possibility as well. I know it can be a bit hard to get into the water sector otherwise, so that was really important to us. We've also facilitated some networking, and we're just happy to help try and get people connected if it means that we're going to get the best solutions out of that. Finally, I wanted to shout out to everyone who's listened to me talking today. You made it, we're nearly at the end. This is really important to us. Like this stakeholder engagement bit, this engaging with people that are not necessarily water experts is what we want to do because we think it's necessary to bridge that gap. So we had the initial consultation on the fund, but we continued engaging with people after that. We have an advisory panel that sort of comes in regularly to tell us from sort of an outside in whether they think we're doing the right things or not, and to help us design the future of the competition. We interview people throughout the sector when we design our competition so that we make sure that we're being strategic and asking the right questions and looking at the right aspects of the themes. We do webinars. You can find the launch webinar online as well if you want to go into the details and the nitty-gritty of the application process. We do drop-in session or surgery session that you can book if you've got a solution but you're not really, you have questions about the technicality aspect. You can come to us and book some time, like a 15-minute slot to go through your questions. And finally, we have seen a really great level of engagement in the process until now. A lot of media coverage, a lot of prospective entrants registering interest and also showing up to our webinars, and over 100 people showing up to the very first networking event hosted by the WEF that we hosted last week. It was a real pleasure to have people there, and I hope that we can continue doing this, and that if you're interested, you'll be coming to the next time we do networking and the next time we want to get people involved in the water efficiency. That's all my slides, but I'm happy to take questions if you have anything that you wanted to ask.
A lot of your presentation talked about, I guess, end use, consumers, buildings and so on. Does the lab have interest as well in other aspects of the water industry? My interest is remote infrastructure, sewage works, rivers, estuaries and so on. Does it reach out into those areas as well?
That's a really interesting question, thank you. So the lab is, because it's challenge focused, it has that spectrum based on like this specific issue that we need to solve. And I think the insight theme this year would probably not be a super great fit to a lot of this, unless it's, I'm trying to see how it could fit. I guess if you're looking at how do I give insight to the operators of those networks and so they can act on it and make their system more water efficient, it could work. I think there is also, so if you've got a project and you think it's not really a great fit for the water efficiency lab, but it's still an important way to act on the water sector, there is also the Water Innovation Fund, which is the other big source of money for innovation in Ofwat. It's split into several different challenges, and one of them being breakthrough, where you need a water company partner, but you can ask for a lot more funding than through the well. And then you've got discovery, which is, I think, open to everyone, and is more about having that seed funding to develop a new tool. And I think there is other competitions coming in the future, but that have not been fully released yet. So watch this space. I think we've got a lot of names out there already, implementation and cross-sector, but it's not, the competitions aren't open yet. But if you're interested in that, I think I've got the well card as both the well and the innovation fund on both, so you can yeah. So I think we've got about a month and a half of assessment and judging. We'll be looking to talking to the winners in May and announcing the winners in June, just because it takes a bit of time to sign the paperwork and yeah, to get those agreements. But yeah, that would be the time span.
Any others? Any other questions? No? Good. Thank you very, very much. So we're going to have a little comfort break now. There's be teas and coffees outside. If we can come back in 25 minutes, 3:45, there's going to be a panel discussion looking at the smart use of buildings and water resources. So 25 minutes, quick break. Please, do speak amongst each other. Look at the exhibition upstairs, and we're called.
Good afternoon, everyone. That was brilliant. Everyone went silent then. Normally, don't you? So, so clearly, you've had you just pointed me towards the microphone there. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I think you can hear me now. So, welcome to the last panel discussion of the day, the last of this first Water Wednesday of the event. So, we're going to be talking smart design, smart use, building a water efficient future. We've got a fabulous panel that I'm going to hand over to in a moment, and they're going to give us their opening remarks. But in the meantime, I'm Tamara Walters. I'm Policy Manager for WaterWise, the independent voice for water efficiency in the UK, leading independent voice, let's get it right. And as hopefully most of you were here from the beginning, and you would have heard from Nikki, our CEO, who told you that basically our role is to lead and inspire everyone to be more water efficient and make sure that water is used efficiently everywhere by everyone every single day. So, and we know why, because we are looking at a real water scarcity problem across the country. The Environment Agency told us last year that we are looking at, by 2055, we're looking at 8 million more people, less water and more water being used because of climate change. And that could result in us having a 6 billion litre a day shortfall. Now, many of you have probably been in the water industry for a really long time. Some of you might not. And I think that, to me, was a really, really shocking statistic and something I didn't know about, even though I had a sustainability background. So we talk a lot about carbon. We very often don't talk about water, but they are very much siblings to one another. So in terms of the solution, we've got water companies who have their water resource management plans. There's £8 billion worth of efficiency and demand management measures in those plans, including smart meter rollouts, leak control, things like building reservoirs. But what that Environment Agency report told us, or that assessment of our water needs, is that 80% of that deficit needs to come from demand management. It needs to come from efficiency. It needs to come from leak reduction. One of the key things is around water reuse and rainwater harvesting, which has been spoken about already today. And the UK Water Reuse Association think that up to 20% of that shortfall could come or could be found from installing water reuse in all of our new developments now in 2030. So, and the Climate Change Committee also found that water efficiency is the cheapest. So, as you might remember from Nikki's talk at the beginning, that my colleague Rachel said the cheapest water is the water not used. And then when we talk about measures, water efficiency is also the most efficient. So, again, we've had lots of fabulous speakers today telling us how water is really fundamental to our economy. It's really fundamental to our day-to-day lives. And so we've got to manage it better. And some areas are facing more water shortages than others. So we've seen houses not being able, and development being restricted in parts of Sussex and Cambridgeshire. Suffolk and Norfolk. And so it's the extra demands that we're putting on what is, in fact, not only a vital resource, but a finite resource. We've seen unpredictable water. Our water cycle is being disrupted by climate change. And so we're seeing really unpredictable weather patterns, horrendous drought that we obviously saw last year. And we've only, I think, the last drought status was only lifted in the last couple of weeks. 88% of businesses are in areas that are projected to have a deficit in their supply by 2030. So no area is immune. So some areas the water is more scarce than others, but what we need is we obviously need smart design and smarter use within our buildings to provide us with the headroom that we need. So we talk a lot about headroom, so providing that extra supply and that extra capacity to make sure that we remove that so that we address that scarce water future that we're facing, we reduce the competition for the demand for water, and we enable growth within our economy. So without further ado, I'm going to now hand over to Alison from the Environment Agency to give us her opening remarks.
Right, get this, not tip that one over. Thank you. So yes, I am in fact the Water Resources Senior Advisor at the Environment Agency. So I'm part of a national team that looks at water resource planning, but I particularly focus on demand. So I've been doing that role for a couple of years. Before that, I was at a water company doing water resource planning from that side, so I've switched roles. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the role of the regulators in terms of demand, and then talk a bit about what I think, I think we need to go next. And hopefully I won't say too much of the things that have already been said, so it's good that you're already aware of those things. So what our role is, alongside the other regulators like Ofwat, is to assess long-term plans to manage demand. So that means leakage, it means consumption by households and consumption by non-households. So we create guidance that the water suppliers follow, so when they look at how they're going to balance supply and demand into the future, and they're really long-term plans, so they go beyond 25 years, usually up to 80 years, because you need to do that in order to think about any new reservoirs you need, and actually be able to justify, putting them in place. And it takes a very long time to plan and then start building a reservoir and then fill it, etc. So but on the demand side, there is going to be a step change in the amount of demand management that's going on, because those new reservoirs and desalination schemes and things are going to take a long time to come in. So in the meantime, it is mostly focused on reducing demand. So companies have to look at rates of growth, where they expect new population to be, look at the local authority plans, and there's obviously a lot of uncertainty around where they're going to be. So we have to sort of look at different scenarios. What happens if this actually built here rather than here, and then also other things that might change demand. So climate change has already been mentioned, but also things like government policies coming in. And I'm working with DEFRA on a mandatory water efficiency labelling scheme that's going to come in this year, and I'll come back to mention that in a minute. So, and then apart from that, then they look at, so if supply and demand doesn't match, they then have to look at schemes. So look at ways to reduce demand, and Andrew probably have some of those things, but they've already been mentioned, like smart metering. So we have a role that so these plans are updated every 5 years, and then we review them annually to see if they are on track or not. So at the moment, household demand is around 137 litres per person per day. And that's way higher than most people imagine that they are using. So everybody in the home is using that amount of water. And leakage is also above planned levels. So, that's despite a lot of work going on, fitting meters, smart meters, leakage reduction. But we are expecting this significant jump in investment this 5-year period and beyond. But, even the start of this 5-year period, starting last year, see, we had a drought last year, so it's a really challenging start. And so if we, ultimately, if we don't get demand back on track, then, there's an increasing risk of water shortages and higher impacts on the environment. So, and it's not just about hosepipe bans, which is the first thing that can happen. It could be obviously higher than that. So, and then in terms of areas of water scarcity, some of them have been mentioned. There are other areas that are sort of up and coming that could be the new areas of water scarcity beyond Cambridge and beyond Sussex. So where do we need to go next? Simply, we need everybody to deliver what they need, what they set out to do and what they said they would do. And that's the government in terms of their new policies, and then the water companies, we've got retailers, we've got regulators like ourselves. So, and we also need buy-in and support from the whole wider sector. We can't solve this on our own, so that includes developers, suppliers, designers. So coming back to the water efficiency labelling scheme, I think it is an example of something that will really help lay the foundation for raising consumer awareness. So it will be a label that will be on water using products, similar to the energy label, saying, really efficient would be A, very, very inefficient would be F. And we know from the energy label, it's really shifted the market in terms of driving shift from the manufacturing point of view to more efficient products, and also the pull from consumers. So that will be really impactful when that comes out, and so hopefully start seeing that by the end of the year. And then also, it also can help with new builds in terms of getting more efficient new builds to comply with building regulations. But I'd say we also need to get everybody to understand that their role and responsibility in designing of products, in fitting of products, and in using them. So in terms of design, we want products that don't leak and that are easy to use efficiently. You shouldn't have, it should be the default setting. It shouldn't be for the user to sort of try and work out how they use it efficiently. It should be clear. One thing that Andrew knows is one of my pet peeves is something like dual flush buttons. People do not know which button to press to get a short flush or a long flush. Why should that be a thing? So it's, there are some things I think that should be quite easy to do. And then in terms of the installers and the plumbers, they need, products need to be fitted in a way that they don't leak, and that again, and they are used in a way that they should be. So not sort of flushing more than it should, or etc. So, and also those people are very influential. Advising people on what to buy. So, I mean, that comes back to the label again. But if they don't advise consumers about the range of products that's available, whether you're buying a new home or a new bathroom or kitchen, we know a lot of people buy things like that through that sort of route. If they don't understand what the sort of trade-offs are between water efficiency and other factors, if they think that all the taps are the same and all of the showers are the same, then how can they make those choices? Then we obviously need water companies to do what they say that they're going to do, fit, their smart meters, etc., and communicate that data to their customers. And then we need consumers to be aware of what they're using, excuse me, and think about their water use when they are buying new products and just going about their daily lives. So I've learned a lot about consumer behaviour, and I know that people use water very differently, and the averages aren't very helpful, even though we use them all the time. So the range in consumption is really wide, and even if they're identical houses, people living next door. So we need to think about that, and then we also need to make sure that water efficiency is not just for during a drought, it's all the time, whether it's raining or not raining. So we need to try and maintain people's sort of awareness throughout that time.
Guys, do you mind if I not stand here? Sorry.
You can take the microphone off then.
I'm not sure I need one, but anyway, we'll give it a go. All right. My name's Andrew Tucker. I look after demand reduction work at Thames. So I've been at Thames for about 12 years, came in to set up all of our water efficiency programs. They've since been running really, really well. They're probably the largest water efficiency programs in the country. But we have completely changed them to align with the smart meter rollout. So when I was invited to come and do this thing, normally we do a bunch of slides and so forth, and I thought, actually, John and Ollie sent through 3 basic question areas, and they were great. So what I'm going to stand here and do, just hand over a bunch of nuggets and chunks of insight, because I was surprised that even though we've got a pretty defined topic of the day, just how diverse everyone's roles and backgrounds are outside. So I'm just going to hand over a bunch of nuggets and insight and numbers and things that we have found or we are doing. You guys can take it and decipher it and see whether that's relevant to you. Right. So I've been in Thames for 12, I've been doing demand reduction work, demand management, water efficiency for well over in excess of 25, including back to Australian drought stuff. Carry it over here. We've got the largest water efficiency sort of programs. We've been inside and done full retrofits of 380,000 homes, 18,000 businesses. We're in excess of 1.2, 1.3 million smart meters in the ground to date. By 2030, we will be in excess of 2 million. So right now, as of this morning, you look at the stuff and you think, historically, we used to get 1.5 million meter reads a year. Manual meter reads. Right now, we're getting in excess of 30 million a day. Right? You go from old school water company stuff to big data company going, oh my God. I'm here to tell you that the insight from it is game changing. It has completely shifted a lot of the things that we used to do and used to know. A lot of that insight has been fed to Ofwat, to DEFRA, to EA, to Mosul, to everyone, manufacturers, bathroom manufacturers, don't do this, focus on these ones. Buildings, don't do that, focus on this stuff. Because of what the data is telling us. It is completely shifting what we understand about usage and water loss. For the purpose of this, water loss in homes and buildings, so commercial or domestic, doesn't matter. Wastage is internal water loss, leaky loos, dripping taps, pipes inside the building, but the supply pipe that goes from the meter or the pavement out there to the edge or fabric of the building, that's a customer supply pipe leakage wall. So leakage, usage, 2 different things, 2 different reporting mechanisms. And it's important to sort of pick that up. It's become more important recently. Last bunch of years. Droughts, record drought, record summer, long-standing, longest water scarcity period, record heat waves, 2018, 2020, 2022, 2025. No idea what's going to happen 2026, 27, it might be worse. But a lot of those times when hosepipe bans have come in, or you've got to mad out to comms to everyone saying, look, the water situation is really, really challenging, can you help us and do this? Most of those times, at the beginning of the year, or the end of winter, or beginning of spring, things are fantastic. It is astonishing how quick it goes from green to amber to red. Countrywide, it's quite a hand-to-mouth system. Where I grew up, the reservoirs are 3 years supply. We go through that system in about 45 days. Smaller storage, lots of mouths to feed, older, more complex system. So it's quite a different scenario. So the reason why demand reduction is so important is it's mouths to feed when an environment can't supply you. Okay. So as I said, we're 10 years into the rollout. We were the first ones to jump into smarts. We'll have all businesses smart metered, by a couple, by the end of AMP8, which is 2030. And we'll have nearly 2 million homes sort of smart metered by then, and it is huge. Average household, just less than 400 litres a day across the board. A household that has a continuous flow, which is 9% of the entire building stock. The entire housing stock, 9% never stop flowing. The biggest chunk of that is a leaky loo. That represents so far 5% of the entire building stock is a leaky loo. Alison mentioned around push-button toilets. She has so many presentations. Oh my God, and it's brilliant. Average leaky loo, 200 to 400 litres a day in a house. The average leaky loo in a business, same problem, same fault. We know exactly what it is. Same in a business, the average leaky loo is well in excess of 1,000 litres a day. Guarantee you, every single building in Store Street here around the corner will have a leaky loo. Guarantee it. It is by far the most... That's brilliant. Hassle, everyone. Plumber who knows the most. Okay, we're now getting, especially this time, last summer, 2025, peak summer with smart meters. We were using smart meters nearly live to take insight to work out what's going on. We now know how much a hosepipe ban does and doesn't do. We We know what comms does during that time. Frequent communication is so critical. It's going to become core business, whether it's the stakeholders, retailers, or households doing their daily routine. It's going to be absolutely critical. We now know that from smart meter data that when temperatures get to about 20 degrees, households with outside space start doing this with the usage. When it hits the 25, they rocket. When it's above 25 degrees, an attached house uses 47% more water every day. Potable water. And it's a mixture of stuff that we don't really know yet. Is it a sprinkler? Is it a lawn? Is it a micro irrigation? Is it a paddling pool? Is it pressure washing? Is it the patio washing? Is it new kids' toys I buy on Amazon or Costco for nothing? Not sure, but it's a lot of water. We now know that where it is occurring and not. Flats don't change in temperature, but temperature is everything on peak usage with outside space. Same thing occurs on businesses. Right. I'll be bold and say this thing. We have a national water target. Way cool, fantastic. Apex predator, and you need to drive from the top. I can guarantee I'll walk out the door and no one knows about it. I don't know about carbon and net zero probably, but they won't know about water yet. It's a shame that no one's really told them. I'd love to tell them, but it's not my target. I've had to inherit lots of it, but it's not my target. Okay, right, this is the killer bit. That target is not going to be delivered without smart metering. No ifs, no buts. I need a smart meter on every single connection to the network. Without that, we will never, ever, ever know who the high users are and where the continuous flow is. We have completely changed our entire our water efficiency visit program to focus on high users and those with water loss continuous flow. We found out after doing it for years and years and years, offering it to everyone, that when we've gone into homes that use average or less, it actually increases their usage. But don't do that. There are other ways to save water there, which we're doing too. But smart metering is game changing. So I said before, 9% of all homes are continuously flowing. Of the total water being delivered to households at the moment, that is also 9%. 9% of the total amount of water going to homes is the amount that is being lost that can be engineered out of existence. You'll never ever be able to do that without smart metering. Smart metering is hourly data as a minimum. Without hourly data, you can never find behaviours. If you go too granular for hourly, you chew up battery life and your asset life from an investment point of view, which is not great. And you then start encroaching onto data privacy and GDPR issues. So hourly data is the sweet spot in all this thing. On businesses, building like this, or next door, the hotel, the manufacturing plant, the school, whatever it is. We've got so far 73,000 smart meters in businesses. Of the total water being delivered there this morning, we checked live, 23.5% was continuous flow. Think that in a bit. So nearly a quarter of all the water going to the UK business community is continuous flow. Some of it is genuine around-the-clock usage, like operational usage because I'm using it and so forth. But the overwhelming majority is not. The two biggest things, and by far the two biggest opportunities to save water in commercial properties, is fixing leaky loos and installing controls on men's urinals. 24/7. World-class drinking quality water. Down the drain. If there's anything that you can do for your business, your network, your community, go fix leaky loos and go and fix men's urinals. Before you even get to behaviour change, before you even get to operational change and reuse and so forth, fix the basics. Our smart metering program has told us to go and focus on the basics. Instead of doing 20 different programs years and years ago, I want to do 4. I just want to do the basics. It's most cost effective, it doesn't interrupt people's behaviours and lifestyles, doesn't change their operation, doesn't require the biggest investment, but I save the most precious water. Question early, jump in.
What about the maintenance element?
Sorry, the what, sorry?
The maintenance element?
Of bathrooms and of our network,
Yes.
of leakage. Well, that's an entirely different meeting room.
Because it's okay as people, but what happens?
I can guarantee you that meeting is going on 24/7 is much angrier than today. Much angrier. It's a huge thing. So right now, that bit there on my role is right in the business. I've written the business plan for the next 5 years. For our smart metering program and our water efficiency program, we are investing in our bid in circa 400 million for the next bunch of years. The leakage, so that chunk there of investment is dwarfed by the leakage investment. I promise you. Doesn't make it easier, it's the hardest thing to do. Go ahead.
Just a small question, but I don't use a urinal, so can you just explain to me why it doesn't?
Yeah, sure. You can go for a walk if you want to show you. Okay, the men's urinals will typically have a small reservoir, like a cistern, a larger cistern at the top. Most of the time it's on a timer or a float valve. It will fill up and flush, fill up and flush, fill up and flush. That's drinking quality water. It's the same water that goes to the tap to drink, obviously, but it will just fill up and flush, and it's just constantly flushing every 5 minutes, every 15 minutes, whatever it is, 24/7, even if no one's using it. A sensor on there, whether it's an infrared sensor or a time sensor, will control that. You still want to maintain flow for hygiene reasons, like toilets as well, but it does need to flush continuously. I'll give you an example. Some of the best savings that our team of smarter business, our plumbers, our team of plumbers that go into places every single day and fix stuff, they go into a sporting stadium. There's a lot of those things. Flush all day. And they might get used once a week or once a month, all day. The business community that saves the most water is schools. Lots of bathrooms, high footfall, and no budget to fix it, and it's not on their priority list. Other things to worry about. So we just send our plumbers to schools, and every term break, we saturate term breaks, semester breaks for school visits. Okay, I'm racing through it, I'm above time. Okay, we've done 380,000 retrofits. The label is going to be critical in the future. The label will be the only thing that's going to fundamentally shift the dial on performance of every device and every product in every building in the future. It's going to completely shift that. Got to get the label. Yep. Okay, and lastly for us, there's a great question from John and Ollie for this thing. How does collaboration with developers and designers, so key for this thing, how do the water companies play a role in that? We have an incentive now. We've had it for many years actually. It's been picked up, it's been rolled out across the sector, which is really nice and pleasing. We have an incentive right now to make that every developer, every housing developer in our entire patch, all of London and all of Thames Valley that's in our patch, to become completely water neutral, and we help pay for it. So it stops the demand on the network in theory. I just wish they would take it up. It's a 3-tiered incentive. X number of pounds to do the basics on fittings, which is a little bit more than Part G, Table 2.2. I know it quite well, because Kath and I wrote it in building regs many, many years ago after the code. We are desperate to change building regulations. The consultation is finished. It absolutely needs to kill off the litres per person per day, per capita consumption, utter rubbish. We are monitoring 27,500, as of this morning, 27,500 brand new homes. New homes do not use less water than existing homes. They use the same amount. The 105, the 110, it's a theoretical number. We were in the room when it was made up. That's why we've been working so hard these years to get rid of it. Do not think that new homes use less water or use the 110 or 105 or 125. They absolutely do not. Pretty simple why. Same kit in the bathroom, same kit in the kitchen. Not putting anything different that you're buying at the online or in the store for the retrofit. Why would they use less? Litres per person per day is a wrong metric for so many things. It's incorrectly used for water performance commitments on companies, and it is completely misused in building regulations. It should be ditched in a heartbeat.
What should we use instead?
Fittings. Label. A building regs is a one-stop shop. It's a time-limited thing. It's got a very limited audience. It'll have a developer, an architect, and a planner. Those people there do not change behaviours for the family that's going to live for the next 20 years. 50% of the calculation methodology that goes into litres per person per day is assumed behaviour. It's made up. We made it up to meet a political number at the time, and it's just lingered. So we are monitoring the homes. They use exactly the same amount as existing housing. So my recommendations for building regs: scrap litres per person per day. It's rubbish for new homes. It's the wrong implementation of a worthwhile metric to monitor. Replace it with fittings, and as soon as the label comes out, your building regs, your planning, and anything associated with refurb or retrofit only needs one sentence. Scrap 12 pages of calculations garbage and say, we require all new buildings to use A or B rated products.
So then that needs to be focused on the manufacturers.
Well, they need to be dictated from the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bells just fall on. Incentives don't work in this case. You need a stick.
You mentioned earlier the national water target. I missed what that was.
The national water target.
Yeah.
So the national water target is a 20% reduction of the total water put into public supply. It's made up of 3 components. It has a leakage component of a 50% reduction by 2050. It's got a PCC target, a per capita consumption target, which relates to household consumption of 110. Average of it at the moment is about 137, 138. Average, but every single street is different. Every water resource zone is different. So that's why you've got to be careful about not to misuse the average. Lastly, the business community is a 9% reduction in total business usage by 2037, and a down to a glide path of a 15% reduction in total business usage by mid-century, using a 2019/2020 baseline consumption amount. Did I get that right? I think I got it right. Studies.
Just out of curiosity, is the NHS considered part of that?
Yep. Yeah, NHS, MOD, probably the hardest sectors to employ. But mind you, I can go to every sector out there and no one knows about it. So it's not embedded in anything at the moment. So I would call that a lost opportunity.
So
That's me being as positive as I can.
Did you say MOD and
NHS. They're really tough sites to get into. Water efficiency requires physical intervention. They're tough sites to get into, and they've got a lot more rules, particularly in NHS hygiene. It's very difficult. But so put it this way, we helped DEFRA behind the scenes a bit with some numbers with our smart metering data and business stuff to say, answer the question, is 9% to 15% reduction in business, is that viable? Is it doable? Looked at the smart meter data, looked at our plumbers who have gone into thousands and thousands and thousands of places, and yes, it absolutely is. And I think actually the target can be reached by just fixing the continuous flow. Smart meter data, attack, go to war on continuous flow. Yep. No, sorry.
Wait for it.
I've got the opposite problem to Andrew. I'm not sure I can be seen over the lectern. I'm going to have to literally... Okay, hopefully you can all see and hear me. So I've actually got slides, controversial. Only a few, don't worry. So I'm Jane Bellard, Water Saving Behaviour Change Specialist at We're the Agency, and we very much look at actual interventions, campaigns, communications with consumers, customers, business and household. But here I'm looking at 2 particular case studies which have been done on new build housing developments, about 1,000 homes each at the time that we did the intervention, albeit both of them were due to grow and were still being built at the time. And so what we have got here is the first example is Bidwell Water Savers. Now this is part of Project Zero, which you can read more about up in the exhibition hall. It's an Ofwat innovation funded project, and it's looking at 3 sites. One, a housing development where you've got just technology interventions and seeing how low you can get water use. The second site, which is what I'm going to talk through here, was just using behaviour change. How do we get the water use as low as possible using only behaviour change, no smart meters, no tech interventions whatsoever? And then a third site where we're going to look at both together that's in the future yet to happen. And what we did here was we had to find the motivation, the insight, right? Why is somebody going to care about doing this? What can we do to motivate them to save water? And what we did was we talked to the residents of this site in Bedfordshire, and what really came out clearly was they wanted some choice, because we do know already, there is no one behaviour that everybody does or one behaviour that nobody does. And for different people, there's different levels of comfort around changing things. So what we decided to do was to give them one action, which is to pick a pledge. Pick one thing from a list They were given the information about what saving that would deliver for them. And we just asked them to pick something they don't already do and to change that. And so we managed to get 96% awareness of this on this site. And actually what we started to get was a social acceptance of water saving was a socially acceptable thing. And actually we started to get towards the end of the process, people sort of saying, God, I wouldn't be seen dead using my hose to wash my car or water the garden. That's like social suicide on this estate. You know, we managed to shift the dial sufficiently. Now, this is partly because it was a small, you know, it is one site. We've done much, much bigger multi-millions households. 1,000. Yeah, but both of these, there's roughly 1,000 at the point where we started. There was more by the time we ended, because, of course, they were still building, yeah. So this was a site called Bidwell West in Bedfordshire. And so but what we saw was we asked people to sign up for a pledge. Around 50% of the households signed up on a digital format, but actually 44% of those who didn't sign up actually still saw reductions. So the message was getting out there. But what really happened here was about the critical mass and there being that sort of tipping point that we saw in terms of people wanting to change their behaviour because they saw it as a social norm. We managed to get 15% of people to sign up on the launch day. So we were able to go straight into a norming factor really early, and that made a really big difference. What Bidwell taught us, if we're boiling this down, is those early norms really mattered. Making it this sort of action that people were taking visible and easy to see, and we were communicating back to people all the time about what others were doing, using people on the site to be voice pieces, not just ourselves, using the community action. And actually the community association that was created before we engaged, but really helped to spread the word, were able to use some of what they had done here as to get like levelling up funding for various other community projects because they could sort of show that they could come together and do stuff. I can talk to anybody afterwards about that. But really that one key message beats that many messages, and having this pledge model looks like lots of messages, but actually it was just about one, just do your one thing. And the second site I want to talk to you about is called Alconbury Weald. This is in Cambridgeshire, which is notoriously water stressed, and it's by a company, a master developer called Urban and Civic, very responsible master developer, and they wanted to get their households using 90 litres per person per day now. They kind of can see what's coming, and I think we're just wanting to make sure that this is possible. How do we start this process? Because it's not going to happen overnight. And these houses were built to regs from 10, 15 years ago. And Andrew made my point perfectly around building into a certain level of expected household water use is only useful until people turn up and start using it, right? And so they built it right from the top into their sustainability framework. This is come from the top down. And when we talked to the residents, we had already done 2 years of back-to-back successful campaigning in Cambridgeshire, which had seen a huge reduction based on environmental lean. So towards the campaigns were Can for the Cam and Yes We Can, using the chalk stream and the sort of rarity, using that as the lever. So it's natural to sort of assume, okay, Bidwell, we had this agency piece, we had Yes We Can, Can for the Cam, environmental piece, that's probably the most likely levers, but we need to know for sure what these people actually think. And it was quite different. Interestingly, what we saw was they had all stretched themselves to buy these houses because there's such a menu of different sort of sizes of house. They had gone right to the top of their budget, and then the cost of living has gone up, and they've all kind of gone, actually, we can't afford our life, you know, only to the tune of a couple of £100 a month, but that's quite a big amount to find. And actually, so they were sort of saying, look, we care, we want to do the right thing, like water saving as an abstract concept, yes, I want to do that, but on a day-to-day basis, I have to make ends meet. And if you can tell me a way that will do that and serve you, let's do it. So what we did was we created this calculator that you can see in the middle here at the bottom. And it's really straightforward, and it literally is just something you can play with. Anybody can use it, by the way. I can send a link to it. But it just sort of says, you know, how many minutes a week do you think your household could shave off their showers? And how many loads of washing do you think you could turn to eco mode? you know, how could you change your dishwashing behaviours? And it allows you to kind of go, well, what is the comfort level for me of something I could do? And then it actually shows you what you would save in your energy and water bills combined. Now, it's helpful on a new build site. They all start with the same energy company. They all start with the same, they obviously all have the same water company. In this case, it was Anglian. And so we were able to give them those sort of estimates. We have, you know, there's plenty of caveats around this. These are average if you've changed your energy provider, tariff, etc. But it has really engaged people in a sort of like, I hadn't realised that something that, you know, is a relatively small switch could have a big impact, because it's very rare you actually see the savings of water and energy together in one place. So it was just about bringing that information and giving them that agency. And really, and what we learned from them was people change when the impact feels personal. They were asking us for something that could save them 40, 50, 60 quid a month. And we were able to help show them how they could decide how to do that. We weren't telling them what to do. We were kind of giving them that the feedback, I suppose, of how they can help themselves. The money made that more tangible for them, and those habits then needed reinforcing. So there was a comms program for anybody who had taken that calculator that helped to nudge them on the things that they had suggested. So just to wrap up then, before we do our panel, what that sort of means today, and I suppose I was really pondering this, because obviously this has been very high level. Anybody wants to talk to me in more detail about behaviour change campaigns we've run, I'm more than happy to hang around afterwards and talk. But really, when it comes to building and how we can make a difference, I suppose, is that I think the opportunity is this. We need to treat behaviour as part of the system. Like, it's very easy to kind of see like infrastructure asset things and behaviour as two really separate entities, and it kind of all needs to fit as one. And I think in order... Oh, sorry. I think in order for that to happen, we need to make sure that we've got developers, water companies, designers and residents all coming together and actually feeling that they are all part of one system and understanding their role in that system. I think that's kind of where I'm going to leave it now and move on to our panel. Oh, we're moving.